Hi, and welcome back to another episode of All in All with Alex podcast. I'm your host, of course, Alex. Today we have a very special guest, and I know I'm kind of bad with names. I'm probably gonna butcher this, so I'm just gonna I'm gonna let him introduce himself and let him know a couple things about himself, and then we're gonna get going.
So I'm Mahesh Grossman. I'm a somatic hypnotherapist, which means when I work with hypnosis, I hypnotize not just your mind but your body, and work with things like that. And I call myself the love heals anxiety guy, because ultimately what happens is the places when we find kind of the hurt places inside us that are running us. It's some part of ourselves that doesn't love ourselves unconditionally. And I have this method where you can find that part and change that part, and it gets rid of anxiety. I'm
Mm,
the author of the 1 minute anxiety solution with 57 different ways to lower your anxiety in a minute, and the creator of the Defy Trauma course, which helps you find and heal the root cause of anything that's not working in your life.
okay. Okay, cool. I love the intro. I love the intro. So we're gonna just go ahead and get straight into it. So, can you explain what hypnotherapy is like, and how can it be beneficial for people's mental health? Because I feel like one of the things I kind of focus on here in my podcast is mental health because it's a topic that's not discussed enough and it's not focused on enough. So I kind of I try to do a lot of focus on the mental health side. So can you let them
Yeah,
know how?
sure. So here's what hypnosis really is. First off, you've been hypnotized a hundred or 1,000 times in your life, and you didn't know it. Hypnosis is really a combination of concentration, imagination, and connecting to your subconscious mind, to the part of your mind that's not fully you're not fully aware of, so that you know how you have an aha moment where you just suddenly know something that's coming from your subconscious mind. And so we're hypnotized all the time. If you're the type of person who reads novels, for example, or has read novels, you don't even have to read them now for this to apply. But if you ever read a novel and it said she saw a gray rock castle with a cherry red door, and you saw the gray rock castle and the cherry red door, you were hypnotized by the author, by the book. Because if you were working with me, I would say, picture a gray rock castle with a cherry red door. And it would be the same exact thing. Now, if you're not one of those people who turns words into pictures when you're reading them, but you've been to the movies, and when something sad happens to the main character, you're sad. When something that makes you angry happens, it makes the main character angry, and you get angry, or if something that makes them happy and you get happy, guess what? Some part of you knows logically that this is all fake, right? It's just a movie. Nothing is, even in a documentary, it's not happening now. But you've been hypnotized by the movie. If you've ever, played a video game, and nobody, you didn't, somebody was saying, "Hey, Alex, Alex, Alex," because you didn't hear them, or if you ever got stuck on the freeway or subway and missed your stop because you were so lost in thought, that's also hypnosis. So people think hypnosis is this big deep trance, or they saw Getting Out with her hitting the tea. Did you ever see that with her spoon hits the teacup? It took me years to watch that movie because I'm not a horror person.
Yeah.
But um, it doesn't have to be like that. And if you've seen the hypnosis shows, they're getting very specific people. They're trained to pick out the people who are the most suggestible and hypnotizable out of the audience. And I've never been trained to be a show, to do shows with hypnosis, because for me it's more about healing. But there's some people who are just can go deeper faster, and they're also looking for people who like to show off, who like have a show some kind of tendency to wanna, you know, quack like a duck, or whatever it is they're doing
Yeah.
with the hypnosis. That doesn't come into it with um, with hypnosis healing. So most of the people I work with are going. You only have to be a foot deep into trance. Let's say and trance is a normal state, right? If you all the things I described are kind of a form of trance. So you don't have to be a full yardstick. You can be a foot deep, and you remember everything. Now, on occasion, I'll run into someone who um, who goes super deep. And I had one woman who she had gastric bypass surgery, and
Mm.
she started drinking Coca-Colas, and she was drinking 7 Coca-Colas a day. So she came to me to stop drinking Coca-Cola. And so we did all the things you do. And then one of the things you do is rehearse what would a day like be without Coca-Cola. And it goes very fast, right? It's like, well, okay, so you're going to go home and you're going to eat dinner. And what are you going to drink with dinner? And, she was going to drink whatever she was going to drink, but it wasn't going to be Coca-Cola. And then, 9 o'clock, and then bedtime, and then waking up the next morning, and lunch and snacks. And we got to 5 o'clock almost as fast as this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is 2 minutes. And she started crying. She felt so deprived by going through an imaginary day without Coca-Cola
Oh wow.
that she just started losing. But most of the people I work with aren't like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why she stands out so much. So that's what kind of a normal hypnosis kind of thing is to just and the way I work, you talk about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, the biggest thing you can do for your mental health, I mean, a lot of people think of hypnosis as, I'm going to eat vegetables and I'm going to cut back on, sweets or whatever it is. If I was just on the phone with somebody who wanted to lose weight. But suggestions are only part of it. And in my world, it's a small part. Because what we really want to get at is what is the main thing that caused whatever you're having difficulty with. If you're anxious, you can find out what it is that the real reason you have anxiety. So I'll tell you a story about cave people and anxiety. Okay, like the original caveman, right? Caveman gets attacked by a woolly mammoth near yellow grass, and he runs and runs, and he finally just barely survives by the skin of his teeth. A couple days later, his grandmother has him over for dinner. Nice roasted bison. I don't know. And then he goes back afterwards. They go back to the back of her cave where she's got all these cave paintings. And one of the cave paintings is a yellow horse. There are cave paintings of yellow horses. So, and without being consciously aware of it, his mind, what I call the cave brain, it's called the amygdala, but amygdala means almonds because it's shaped like an almond. So I think cave brain is better than almonds.
Yeah.
If you're Greek, you're at a disadvantage because you know it means almonds. Right?
Right.
Amygdala means almonds in Greek rather. So his brain picks up that the yellow from the horse is the same color as the yellow of the grass he was attacked by. And so what happens is it starts getting him ready to either fight the woolly mammoth, to run away from the woolly mammoth, or to freeze like a hedgehog so that the woolly mammoth might not notice him. And how does it do that? It either, freeze symptoms are, well, it can be a rapid heart rate, make you nauseous because, when you're nauseous, you don't move. It can tighten all your muscles. All the different things that people talk about when they say they have anxiety symptoms are really this is so fight, flee, or freeze symptoms. They don't, you have to practice the tongue twisters, and I didn't.
Yeah, but what else than that?
So the thing about our anxiety right now is when we're anxious, it's because our brain is making a connection to something that's scared or hurt us. On some level, it's a lot of times it thinks we're going to die, and so it's got to protect us, or it's going to, or we're going to be abandoned, or we're going to be whatever. So when I work with people, what I'm looking for is what's your woolly mammoth experience, right? What's the original reason? And when you heal those kinds of things, it changes everything. So, your woolly mammoth experience, let's say, um, I'm losing I'm losing a place, but you're getting anxious. You typically get anxious. Um, well, I'll tell you about a woman with social anxiety. I'll just give you a real anxiety, real example. So this woman had social anxiety. And when I do the work with people, I'll say, notice. So when you think about the situation, let's say a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and I'll say, just think about the Chamber of Commerce meeting and let yourself notice that the anxiety wants to come. And I'll say, notice where you feel that in your body. Where do you feel tension in your body? And a lot of times it's your chest or your midriff or your belly. And then I'll say, hey, how old were you the first time you had that feeling? Were you 10? And you don't have to know right away. You can just, are you 10 or under, or are you 11 or older? And let's say it's 10 or under. We start splitting the difference. Were you 5 to 10, or were you under 5? And if they say 5 to 10, were you 5 to 7 or 8 to 10? And then, we can break it down right to the year, or if you were 8 to 10, 9 is a pretty good guess.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be too far off. So what we do then is we get them I'll ask them, where were you? Were you in school? Were you in work? Well, not work. Were you in school, or were you at home, basically, or outside, or someplace else? And sometimes you're at grandpa's house or whatever. So for this woman, and then I asked, well, what happened that upset you? And who were you upset with? So with this woman, what happened was, it was first grade, and she had this assignment to draw and cut out an angel, and the teacher put all the angels on the board.
Mm-hmm.
And they were signed, and so everybody knew whose was whose. And one little boy happened to notice that her angel looked different. Then it had a little protrusion, and he started yelling, Susan has a penis. And everybody in the class started yelling, Susan has a penis, because her little angel had kind of a cut. She didn't do the perfect cutout. And that was one of the main things that caused her anxiety.
Wow. That's crazy.
And so what happens when you know that is you can go back, and let's say it's your mom and she criticized you all the time. And I have certain sentences, they're really simple fill in the blank sentences, which are blank, it really hurt me when you blank, or blank, it really made me mad when you blank, or blank, it really scared me when you blank. Those are the sentences, although with anger, I sometimes change it to screw you, you don't get to blank. And with a different word. Because part of what you have to do is some people are not comfortable being angry. So you want to help them. Those particular words are helpful in getting to someone really to connect to their anger. And then if they say, screw you, mom, you don't get to criticize me all the time, doesn't sound angry. So we want to get them to actually say it with a little bit of feeling. You don't have to scream and yell like they taught me when I was in therapy for 30 plus years, on and off for 30 years. You just have to just feel, just have to be angry sounding. Screw you, mom, you don't get to criticize me all the time. You won't lose your voice over that. You won't hear it in the next room, but you'll feel the anger.
Mm-hmm.
And then 100% of the time, if you picture your mom and you say that to her, the mom who lives only inside you, right? If you were 5 years old and you're 30 now, this mom only existed 25 years ago, not now. So they only live inside your head. So it's really just a part of you. But that mom, 100% of the time, is going to make an excuse. She's going to say, well, you just needed that. You were not going to, you were going to be a failure if I didn't criticize you, which is awful here. Or she'll say, well, that's what my mother did to me. And when you hear that, Does that sound satisfying to you at all?
No, I mean, that don't make it right just because it was done to you.
Yeah. None of it's satisfying. So once we get to that point, then we're going to work with, and this voice belongs to you. It's a part of you that's not loving yourself unconditionally, and it's a part of you that's really scared. It's why you're anxious, is because it feels like you're going to be criticized all the time in that whatever that situation is. And things are, there are worse kinds of trauma, obviously, that have a bigger effect in certain ways, but sometimes it's just, it's like the erosion, when a stone gets eroded, where the drip method, where suddenly the stone is completely worn away.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens to some of us in childhood is excuse me, there's just it's this stuff that happens over and over again, but sometimes it's bigger stuff, obviously. But what we do is we get to the point through a few different exercises where that mom inside you change her. She does change, and she says, well, she'll do something spontaneous because it's really happening in your subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
But once she does that, I'll have her say, I'm sorry, I love you, you're a great kid, I never should have done that. And it's very satisfying. It's what it does is it lightens the feel, like your body feels lighter, and it makes big shifts. Now, it may not be a one and done thing. Even like, let's say you have tension in your chest. After we do this one, I'll ask you to notice, yeah, how does it feel now compared to how you felt when you first felt this feeling in your chest? Is it more? Is it less? Is it the same? And pretty much 100% of the time, people say it's less. And sometimes it's completely gone. Most of the time, there's something else. So then we keep going back to address that kind of thing. And as you address those things enough, sometimes it takes more than one session, obviously, a lot of sessions usually, but sometimes sometimes you can get. I had one woman who had a fear of needles, and she was diabetic.
Oh,
And also pricky. She cried every time she gave herself a shot, and every time she, the blood test, you have to prick your finger. So
yep.
that's 8 times a day.
Yeah.
And it's funny. This was even before I was a hypnotherapist. I knew how to do some of this stuff. And I got on the phone, and she was her son was an all-star center fielder in baseball.
Okay.
And we had met because back in those days, I had a ghostwriting firm, and I was looking to do a book on how to be a great mom to us. Secrets of the Major League Moms is what I wanted to call it, and how to be a great mom to an athletically talented kid. And the blog I followed, I was introduced by somebody who ran a blog for the Baltimore Orioles. And when we did this piece of work with her, first off, she started crying right away, like crying right away, because I just said, just notice that fear and see how old you are. And she was 3 years old, and it turns out the doctor and her mother, when they tried to give her first shot of insulin, she tensed up, and they couldn't do it. And over again, she couldn't do it. It was too scary, and they yelled at her. Both, she's in this horrible situation of having experienced something that seems really difficult for a 3-year-old, and they were yelling at her. So every time she took the shot or pricked her fingers, it wasn't that this was such a big deal. It was that it made her feel very unloved.
Hmm.
And once she did that, once she realized that, within a week she was able to get her shots going. Her solution to the feeling loved wasn't even a hypnotic kind of thing. She would just call her friends and ask them to tell her that they loved her,
Right.
and that's what worked. And first she got regular with her insulin. Then she was able to get off insulin completely because she was finally doing it right. She also lost 160 pounds.
Oh wow.
She got her insulin right.
Yep.
And once she got over, because it was related to the diabetes, she had other health issues. So at some point, the weight came back because, I mean, she was in a wheelchair. She couldn't do much and things like that. But this is, she said to me that I was the reason she was able, when she had lost the weight, that it all started with her and me and getting the insulin right.
Mm. Yeah, that's man, that's compelling story, man. A lot of people don't understand how much doing therapy definitely helps, whether it's hypnotherapy or just regular talk therapy. Um, what do you feel are some of the common misconceptions about hypnotherapy?
Well, the biggest one is it's going to make you quack like a duck. The other consists, a lot of people put a lot of weight on, oh, you'll do these suggestions and it'll come out fine, instantaneously, brand new. And it's like, well, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe, I mean, but a lot of times it's not a one and done thing. It's not like you take a pill.
Mm-hmm.
It's like people think, oh, I'm going to go to one hypnosis session and I'll be fine, or even two or three. It's like, yeah, some people are. It's true. I mean, I've gotten people over a fear of driving in 3 sessions. This therapist who said her client stayed with her for 6 years. Uh, we did the phobia and her fear of driving in 3 weeks. And I mean, to me, there's always more work, right? It's like there's always stuff. We've all had. Our parents weren't perfect. And so you can go deeper. So I have some people who stay with me for years, not a lot, but a few. And the work gets deeper and deeper and their life gets better and better.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess one of the big misconceptions is just that it's magic.
Right.
And sometimes it is. I had a woman who had neuropathy, and in one session, the week before she'd come to me to stop smoking, it was her fourth stop smoking. She had quit. She had lung cancer, and she'd quit 3 other times.
Oh wow.
And the the fourth time was with me, and she quit permanently because I was in touch with her years later. And but she had I was an intern at the time, and I used an office that I really liked that was down in the basement, kind of not the basement, but the lower portion of the building. And
Mm-hmm.
she said, "Hey, can you pick uh, something that without stairs or without as many stairs?" And I tried, and I couldn't. It was like every room was booked except for this room, which turned out to be great because what happened was when we worked on her neuropathy, at a certain point, I asked her to just imagine some green light bulbs on the bottom of her feet and to turn those light bulbs on. We tried a lot of other things before this. So she had sciatica, and we had dealt with the sciatica by turning off the green light bulb. And she kept, and I try to get people to use images that they're comfortable with.
Right, right, right.
But at this point, I was desperate. I said, let's use those green light bulbs and see if we can turn them on. And so I'm an empath, which means I feel what's going on in other people's bodies as they're doing it, which is kind of helpful when I work with people. And after she turned those light bulbs on, I felt the tingling. It happened right up my ankles, up my calves. Probably that was as far as it went, but it was like shocking. And then we were done, and she had walked up the stairs 2 at a time. The last time, take 2 steps and a break, 2 steps. She walked up 8 stairs in a row. And it was shocking. I'd never, with pain management clients, you don't usually have a clear demonstration of before and after
Right.
but walking is a different kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the things that I help people with is I have a simple thing to help people find and begin to heal the root cause of whatever's bothering them
Mm-hmm.
in 3 minutes. And it's part of something I call the emotional overload first aid kit. And if you go to anxiety123.com, I wanted to make it as easy as 123. So
Yeah.
anxiety123.com. And you'll see a list of the different, you can connect to my Instagram and my TikTok, but there's one thing that says free emotional overload first aid kit. And you can pick that up and it'll teach you the very steps that I take people through in my office to find out what why are they doing it, why are they reaching for a cigarette, why are they reaching for a cookie, why are they getting anxious in certain situations, whatever it is that you're trying to change. This will help you find the root cause. And again, it's at anxiety123.com.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, people would I feel like that's a great tool. Especially, I mean, only takes 3 minutes to be able to help narrow down, what's your what's causing your symptoms, should I say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it's very different from most of what's out there. And
so
you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so do you feel that most people's, issues, whether it be anxiety or whatever the case may be, do you feel like most of them are tied to childhood traumas?
Childhood phobias can be past lives, which is a whole other thing. But yeah, a lot of most of it, and sometimes there's something from adult life that's really profound that hasn't been fully healed. But generally, even the things that happen in adult life that have been really difficult, there's like an extra layer that's underneath.
Mhm.
But so like even if some really bad trauma happened to you, it affects you even more because of something that happened in childhood. It has like extra meaning and
Okay.
stuff like that. But just most of the work I do with people takes them to their childhood.
Hmm.
And when you heal that stuff, see the younger you are, the stuff the stuff at the root of this is the youngest time you had that particular feeling.
Mhm.
So just releasing your feelings or something. I was in a men's group where somebody, when I first started with this men group about 19 years ago, and well, 15 years ago, and they had people just they were upset with something that happened at work, and they would hit pillows or something about that, and I was like, yeah, but that doesn't do it. What because there's something old that bothers us. There's some kind of old wound that bothers us.
Hmm.
And one of the interesting things is if certain things make you cry or make you angry when you're watching TV, it's not the story of what you're watching that's making you cry. It's something that happened to you, some
Mhm.
kind of hurt that you have that gets triggered when you see something on TV. A lot of times it's like for me, one of the things is when I see someone acknowledged on TV, it's like the software goes off that just starts the tears. Now, that software is going to be there forever, but you don't have to heal the software. You just have to heal the part of you that's bothered by these things.
Mhm.
So, if some tear forms in my eye, it's no big deal because I've healed the hurt underneath these things. But, I don't know if you can totally heal the wiring.
Gotcha. I understand.
You can just know that this is what's going on.
So, are the common, the would you say that the common signs of symptoms, common signs or symptoms that come from unresolved childhood trauma? Would you say the common signs are, things like you were saying, watching a movie and you started crying because whatever they feel, it kind of relates back to something you've been through.
Well, or what you didn't get, right? For me, it's acknowledgement. So it's not that I've been through that. It's that I long for that. There's some part of me that was never acknowledged at a certain age. It doesn't mean I wasn't acknowledged for my whole life. It just means there's a young part of me that didn't get that wants
Okay.
it.
Okay.
So, but the symptoms are more like things that aren't working in your life. So, if you're always trying to people please, or you're always trying to fix people, or you're choosing unavailable partners, or you've got imposter syndrome, or you're a perfectionist, or when somebody gets close, you feel like you need to leave. It's like you leave relationships before They're done. They're not necessarily done, but you're so triggered by the relationship.
Mm.
If you're hurt around love, being loved can be really painful.
Yeah.
In my current relationship, being really well loved, I mean, I'm not the runaway kind of guy, but I could feel, I noticed there was a certain amount of pain that came with being really well loved, that it took a little while to get used to being really well loved.
Mm.
So things like that, procrastination is a part of you procrastination is a form of anxiety. When you're procrastinating, it's because some part of you is scared to do the next thing. And whatever that scared, because I don't know if you're a procrastinator, but as one myself, when you actually do the thing that you've been putting off for days or weeks or whatever it is, and you go, "Oh my God, I can't believe this is so easy. I can't believe I had to work so hard to actually get to do this." It's because there's some kind of meaning, some kind of hurt place that's running you.
Mm.
It's saying you're going to die if you do this, or you're going to be abandoned if you do this, or some kind of trauma that happened in your life is going to be repeated. But it's not, you're not aware of even aware of being aware of it, right?
Right.
You, it's just buried somewhere.
Mm.
So, does this, and this stuff works a lot of the, like 80 something percent of the time. While I was waiting to talk to you, I talked to a potential client that had requested that I give her a call, and it didn't work. Nothing I did worked. It's like none of my stuff worked. I was like, okay, we're not. Yeah, I don't think I'm the right one for you. But the vast majority of people I work with are able to do this work really well.
Okay.
And sometimes there's a block, right? Because the block is, it's not safe. It's like we get messages, like a lot of times with anger. I work with a lot of people who have difficulty with anger because it wasn't safe. There was some message they got from one of their parents that it wasn't okay for them to be angry.
Mm.
And so what happens is that you have to find the part find wherever it was that how they got that message.
Right.
And so I do this simple thing. I take people to the library. I used to take them to a beautiful place. And one of my clients, her beautiful place was the library. And I thought, oh my God, that's so good. That's so easy to work with. I don't have to guess whether we're in the mountains or the oceans or the desert or the field. I can just take everybody to the library. And what we do is we go to the library, and you know the kind of bookshelves that if you take the books off, you can see behind it into the aisle.
Mm-hmm.
So we take some books off and you look through, and I do it in a much more detailed fashion so it affects you more. But generally speaking, most people will see either a younger part of themselves or one of their parents or something that relates to what was going on. Or sometimes it'll bring to a scene. I had one guy who saw George Washington, and he was a Chinese and a non-native speaker when he was in first grade. And he did this report on George Washington that he was really, really proud of, but people still made fun of him. And so, but when he saw George Washington in the aisle, we were able to go to that time and place. But sometimes it's like, I got this, it's my mom. My mom was afraid if I got angry, my father would be upset. So she was stopping me from being angry.
Gotcha.
And all of these things are in the, they show up in the aisle of the library.
Mm. That's it.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's interesting.
Yeah, do we have time to go through one more thing?
Yeah, and then after that we'll jump into your book because I definitely want to discuss your book before we get out of here too.
Oh, that sounds great. I probably I should I should have brought that out myself at first, but let's do this. So let's picture you in the library,
Okay.
and we're gonna give you a present, and I'll explain what it's about in a second. But just picture, in the meantime, just picture yourself in that library, and if you were at the table by the front of the books, just walk to the back where there are more tables after the bookshelves. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to see a beautifully wrapped present.
Okay.
And do you see it? So this is what I call in my process the refill step. It's based on something called a soul retrieval from shamanic practices in native cultures. But what it really is, it's not, you're not retrieving your soul. What you're really doing is, like, we all have bad things that happen to us where we squashed some part of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe we squashed our self-love or our joy or our sense of safety or our confidence. And so what the mind will do is symbolically give you something that represents this feeling. And so when you do this work, you get to, so like I had a client who was completely bald and he got a hairbrush, and it was his hairbrush. He had a mullet in the 80s and when he was a teenager, and represented his joy when he was going out with his friends and for, wild nights with his friends. uh, that's what the hairbrush represented. And then you bring it back in and it brings in a certain amount of joy. I had one woman who got rubies, and they represented love. And she was someone who'd been depressed for 20 years. Her husband had been murdered at work by someone they both knew, and she had been depressed for 20 years. And she came to me every week wearing a gray sweatsuit. And I have a feeling she wore that every day of her life, because you go see somebody in the same thing every week, chances are they're wearing it every other day too.
Probably.
And so when she got the rubies, I said, "Hey, ask the rubies what they need from you, in order, if they need anything from you, in order to stay with you forever." And she said, "Well, they said that they need me to allow love in." And I said, "Are you willing to do that?" And she said, "No." I said, and I love no. No means you're hitting a place of resistance. And if we work on the resistance for even a few minutes, something's going to change. I didn't know what, or I didn't really even know it would be a really big deal. But what happened was she got to the point where she was willing to allow love in. And at the end of the session, everybody at the end of a session looks very peaceful. She looked very peaceful, but that's not very unusual or ever unusual. But the next week, all of a sudden, she came by in a beautiful pink top and brand new blue jeans. And I'm like, "Oh, wow, that's interesting." And she has a really nice sense of color, because the match was kind of really, really nice. And she said to me, "I had dinner with my son, and he didn't recognize me." Her son was 29. His father died when he was 9. She'd been depressed for 20 years. He was 29 now. He saw her, and she was normal and happy and regular and a full person. And because the depression had lifted.
Mm.
So that's it's kind of the power of this particular thing that I'm taking you through. Usually, I mean, that's the most extreme version of what happened. But just do yourself a favor, and you can follow along at home and just do it yourself. Notice the present and open it up, and see what's in there. So just picture the present on the table in the back of the library. And do you see what color the wrapping paper is? And let me know. And maybe you see it, maybe you don't see it.
Don't really see the color, but see the wrapping paper.
You see wrapping paper.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. And can you open the present? Can you open the wrapping paper either the way a 4-year-old does, where you rip it to pieces really fast, or the way the neat person does it? However you open a present in regular life.
Mm-hmm.
See if you can see yourself opening the present, and see if you notice what kind of box it does. Well, first off, does it have a box? When you open the present, is there a box?
The present is a box.
It's a box. And is it the type with a lid, or is it an Amazon box? I'm getting 50-50 these days. It's changed over the years.
I see it. I see it more of the type with a lid.
Great. So just take the lid off
Correct.
and see if you notice, like, I don't know if there's tissue paper or if there's something right in there. Just put your hand in there and see if you can tell what the present is.
Emptiness.
It's completely empty.
Emptiness.
All right. Well, are you thinking the present represents emptiness, or are you thinking the box is empty?
Mm, I think it's representing emptiness.
Oh, cool. Well, that's a great present. See if you're the first one who's ever had that happen, where emptiness was the present rather than the box being empty and needing to find another present. See if that emptiness can manifest into an object that you can touch,
Mm,
something that can represent emptiness. See if, like,
I mean, not an object, but definitely a person.
oh, it's a person.
Hmm.
Well, that's a person's an object in overall. What person was it? Is it
Uh, Family. So my mother, son, uh,
okay?
grandma. So different relatives that have moved on.
Oh, interesting. So you're getting kind of connected to people. Are they all gone, or are they present? Some of them.
No, they're all gone.
Well, okay. Yeah. Well, that's interesting, and probably some really cool stuff could happen if we did this in a private session.
Hmm.
It's a little harder to work with. See if there can be some kind of. See if it can change to kind of a ball of white light, or some kind of crystal ball. See if that energy can have some kind of form.
Um,
See if so. Ask your mom if she can give you
mm,
something simple.
Something simple.
Just let it. It's gonna come. It's just gonna show up as you don't. You're not gonna even think about it. It's just see if just picture your mom.
I
Let
would
her.
say. I would say probably a game. We used to play cards a lot.
And
So
does she have a deck of cards in her hand?
yeah, talking her smack right now. So much talking like how she's ready, how she would if we're on the same team, we're gonna beat anybody. But but if we
Oh,
played against.
cool. All right, that's good. So there's an element of love and confidence
Mhm.
that comes with the card. So grab the deck of cards, ask the cards if if there's something to keep or something to get rid of. It's just part of the ritual for me, because sometimes people get things that they're supposed to get rid of, and they don't make sense. It doesn't. I get embarrassed when I ask this. I'm like shocked. But ask the cards if there's something to keep or something to get rid of.
Something to keep.
Beautiful. Ask them if they're willing to become a part. Well, we kind of know what they represent. They seem like confidence and self love and beating the world,
Mhm.
winning the game of life.
Right.
And just ask them if they're willing to become a part of you.
Hmm.
Ask yourself if you're willing to allow the cards to be a part of you.
Hmm.
And ask the cards if there's anything they need from you in order to stay with you forever. And most of the time, if they don't answer, it just means there's nothing.
Yeah, no answer.
Okay, good. So just notice where in your body it would make sense that like it would feel good to have the cards.
Um, hmm,
Your chest might be a good place if you
yeah,
can.
it's probably gonna be the best.
What?
I said, yeah, probably my chest, probably.
Yeah, good, good. So just imagine putting the deck of cards in your chest
Mhm.
and see if you notice a sensation. Sometimes it's tingly, sometimes it's warm.
Kind of steady right now.
Kind of
Um,
what?
I'd say kind of steady. It's not no real major
It
since
doesn't. It doesn't need to be major. It just needs. It just a little tiny. Is there anything? The card? Do you feel the cards at all? The difference between before the cards and after the cards?
not at the moment. I don't know if it's I don't know. It's not right now. Not quite yet.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, what we would normally do is most people, almost everybody feels the card, feels whatever the present is
But
when you put it inside them. But they're not doing a podcast.
yeah. Yeah. They're more so focused directly on it and not having to, do other things at the same time.
Yeah, 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 exactly. It's it's a different kind of thing, but that was kind of interesting. But what happens is you spread that feeling through your body,
Mhm.
and it brings a certain kind of peace, or freedom. Or I ask people what the word is, and when they say that word and they put their hand on the part of their body where they feel the most peace or freedom or joy or whatever it is that they're saying, they're able to say that put their hand there and say that word, and they'll feel that way again.
Mm.
And so that's kind of the process of the last piece of bringing in this quality that we squashed inside of ourselves.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't want to make it too long, but just quick rundown about that. So I know for a while after my mom passed away, I would have dreams that we were all at her house, but she was never there. But nobody ever asked her where she was at.
Oh,
And
that's
then
interesting.
and then sometimes I would have that same dream, but then she would knock at the door and we would open the door and she'll come in the house and it'll be like nothing never happened. Like she was, but it didn't make sense because like, okay, this is your house. Why are you knocking on your own door? And then also, why when you're not here, people is acting like it's not a problem that you're not here. You know what I mean? So for a
Yeah.
while, I had those dreams, and then they all of a sudden stopped. I don't know if it was just me kind of like still kind of grieving at that time and making peace with it. But my mom actually died when I was 20 years old. That was back in 2012. So, um, but I'm about to be 30. Hold on, how am I? I'm gonna be 30, 31, and no, 32. I'm sorry, I'm gonna be 32 in October. So I don't know if it's maybe just time. A lot of time heals certain things, not all, but certain
Yeah.
things.
I mean, it seems to me like that was a dream to help you get used to the new normal, to help you, partly through grief and partly through just the adjustment when somebody dies. When a mom dies,
Mhm.
um, it's it's so different, and there's a part of us that needs a little help from something
Yeah,
to just get used to it.
yeah. So quickly, we'll touch on your book before we get up out of here.
Yeah, sounds good. So it's called the 1 Minute Anxiety Solution,
Mhm.
and it's got 57 different ways to lower anxiety. And you can also pick that up at anxiety123.com.
Okay.
I mean, it's also in your show notes. It'll be the 1 minuteanxietysolution.com. But I want to make everything as easy as possible when you're on the podcast, because I only listen in my car and on the elliptical machine. So,
Yeah.
so if you can remember anxiety it's as easy as 123 to remember anxiety123.com.
Right.
But so in the book, I have 57 different things that lower your anxiety. Some of them are physical things you can do. Some of them are breathing techniques. A lot of them are more guided visually, like 35 of them have to do with connecting your mind and your body. So wherever you feel tension in your body, one of them is like you imagine a magician's hat right in the spot where you feel the tensest. And you know that magic trick where
Mm-hmm.
you pull on one handkerchief and it pulls more handkerchiefs?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what you do. You just keep pulling handkerchiefs out. Oh, my little Alexa thing hears something and it decides that if I have an S sound or if it's a sibilant S or something, it thinks I'm talking to her. At any rate, you just start pulling that out until there's no more handkerchiefs, and that brings a great deal of relief.
Mm.
The one that got was the biggest hit on both Instagram and TikTok. We're on a does everybody get to see this, or are some people listening?
Oh no, it's pre-recorded, so yeah, they'll see it. Once it.
But it's visual. Yeah, yeah. It's not. It's okay because some people do both.
Oh
So
yeah, I do. I do both. I release on YouTube and I release on Spotify, Apple, all of
okay.
it.
So I'll describe what I'm doing as well as do it. So there's this simple thing I call it eye ridge rubbing, and where you just take the corner of there's a bone underneath your eyebrow, and you start making the letter C or a reverse C. In this case, it's showing up as a reverse C. And then you do the same thing to your other eye where you go through the top, all around your eye, there's a bone. And you just touch that around, back and forth about 3 times on each side. And people have really profound experiences with that. I had somebody told me it stopped a panic attack, and it got more likes and views than pretty much anything I've ever posted. And it's more than 500,000 people saw it. So that was one of the ones that people really liked. It's more of a physical back and forth thing. And sometimes there's wordplay kind of things. Because one of the things we deal with anxiety is we're not just anxious, directly anxious from the thing that made us anxious. We also, even when we fix the thing that made us anxious, we're anxious about getting anxious. So I was working with a guy who was going to be hosting some political things on TV nationally, and we had gotten through to kind of the original wound, but he still had this anxiousness about being anxious.
Mm.
So one of the things I had him do is I just say a sentence about what I'm scared that something's or another's going to happen. I'm scared that I'm going to look like a fool, and then you just say the words that rhyme with that. I'm scared that I'm looking like a fool, tool, jewel, mule, school, rule, shul, smool. It doesn't have to be real words, but that kind of shifts it for that kind of thing. It's more of a mental exercise,
Okay.
which I don't usually use mental exercises, but for this particular situation, it really worked.
Mm.
And so you'll do things, there's all kinds of different things that if you feel small around certain people, you know how you can feel really squished. I have a thing that's sort of like you go to the basement and uh, a mad scientist he'll hands you this drink to drink, and when you drink it, something shifts and all kinds of things happen. Everybody gets something different when they drink it. It's something. So it's this step by step. There's 57 different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if one thing doesn't work for you, then there's, you've got 56 others to try, and everybody finds something they like. And it can change things drastically. One woman told me not only did it change things so she was more resilient in all the different ways that she was anxious, but one night she got a call that her husband, who was in the hospital, might die by the next morning, and it was nighttime, and she didn't like driving at night. She didn't actually like driving that much anyway. There'd just been hurricanes and storms in New Zealand where she lived, and she drove to the hospital, and it was raining on top of, and she managed to drive to the hospital and use my techniques while she was driving, and she was calm enough to do it and get there. And the doctor said to her, if she hadn't come, he lived. But he felt like part of why he lived was that she came and she was there for him.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just one of the things. And And it's like these techniques, apparently, I would have not bet on my techniques working in that situation. I'm not 100% sure they would have worked for me in,
Yeah, yeah,
in
that's
that
that's
kind of situation. But they worked for her. And I mean, she did them a lot. They probably would have worked for me. But, you know,
yeah, yeah,
when I hear that story, it's like, whoa.
yeah, yeah.
I was
That's
like, it was shocking how well it worked.
yeah.
So,
So
so,
that lets
so
you know.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say that lets you know that the things you're doing is you're doing a lot of good in this world, and people that's watching this definitely need to, contact you, whether that's going to you. Do you have your contact information on your website as well, right?
Yeah, well, the website I'm sending you to, you can actually set up a free consultation with me on that site as well. Virtually anything that I offer is on that site. It's like, if you've ever been on Instagram and they have these list tree sites, it's like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Okay, I got you.
So, but yeah, so you can, if you want to work one on one, if you want my course in how to do this for yourself, it's called Defy Trauma, and it literally step by step everything I do when I work with clients to a certain point, like when weird things happen, it doesn't cover like when you open the box and it's, all the spirits of all the ancestors, all the people that you've lost in your life.
Yeah,
I was like, okay, I would have to, I had to come up with something for that. Generally, it's an object.
yeah,
So, yeah, sometimes you have to color out of outside the lines, and that
mm-hmm.
works when I'm there. Or you can be imaginative yourself and just say, well, what can I try? But that's my step-by-step process. It tells you how to watch me on Instagram, how to watch me on TikTok.
Okay,
And I've got a bunch of videos where I teach things. And you can buy my book there, and you can buy my course there, and you can set up a free consultation.
okay, okay. Yeah, that's good for all the viewers to know. A lot of people are struggling with different things in their life, and they need, some kind of professional help. And maybe they've had some kind of professional help, but that particular route didn't work for them, and then maybe, getting with you would actually do better for their mental and, actually fighting those traumas so that way they can get back to being the real.
Yeah, I found that talk therapy doesn't really do the trick for most of these things,
Mhm.
because even if you know what happened to you, there's leftover emotions, there's leftover inner conflicts, there's leftover negative self beliefs.
Mhm.
And so just knowing what, I've had people tell me, oh, I did this. But just knowing things isn't enough. It's not letting go of them. And the methods I use help people release the things. And what's really nice is that you don't have to go into the story of what happened,
Okay.
because what happened is, that part is over.
Right.
What's not over is the stuff, the emotions that are unprocessed, and the self beliefs you're carrying from that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So instead of like going into the story of this happened, it's like you can go into, well, the moment before this happened. Just have a moment and just notice where you feel that sensation in your body at that given moment, and that becomes a doorway to whatever it is that happened, and to healing it without ever going into with it. You can't re-traumatize yourself if you're not going back to the story anyway.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. So, um, I want to take this time to thank you for coming on the show. We were supposed to set it up eventually before we ran into a couple of issues, but we finally got it done.
We finally got it done. I got sick the first time.
Yeah. then it got somehow buried in my email, and I was like, oh man, I was going back through my email and trying to catch up on everything. I was like, man, how did I miss this? And so I definitely want to make sure we got it done. But definitely appreciate you taking the time out to come and talk everything on the show with me today. If anybody needs to get in touch with you, I'll put all your links and everything in the description. So is there anything that you want to let the people know before we get up out of here?
Yeah, the biggest thing you can do for yourself is know what to do when you're triggered, because it's not about the biggest, if you get my little emotional overload first aid kit, it will teach you how to find out what's really bugging you when you're bothered, when you're upset about something. And you're not really upset. You're not as upset with the other person as you think. A lot of times it's like they're bumping into your knee, like you already have a bruise on your knee and they're just bumping into your knee, and you already have this pain that's underneath the surface. So if you can, you'll be a better person to other people, you'll be better to yourself. If Putin had that, did this kind of work, he wouldn't be invading Ukraine. He's so it's like, if I can heal, if I can find out what's triggering me, then I don't take it out on everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And all this drama goes away. So that's the last thing. And it's all at anxiety123.com.
Okay. Well, you guys, you've heard it here first. If you're interested in any of his services, or to book a free consultation with him, a free consultation, guys. You can't beat free nowadays. So
yeah, I mean, but be serious that the free consultation is not going to heal a whole bunch of stuff. So be something that's, make sure it's serious, that you would like to explore something deep like this.
Mm-hmm. Right. I agree. So once again, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. You guys have just watched another episode of All in All with Alex. See y'all in the next episode.
Thanks for having me, Alex.
Yes, sir.